Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to our live feed update for August 7th. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and I'm here today to update you on everything that happened yesterday on the Big Brother 26 live feeds. It was day 22 in the house, and it was the awaited fallout day from Tucker's shenanigans. What is going to come of it? Who is going to align? What is going to happen with this vote? That was the question on those were the questions on everyone's mind today. And the answer that we got was there was a very long hug that happened. And there was also some other stuff, but a bit of a slower day. And with me to talk about the slower day, it's Cory.
Yeah, look, I'm the harbinger of bad feeds. They threw an earthquake at the house guests to ensure that not an ounce of strategy was talked, maybe an ounce or two. I'm honestly disheartened, Taran. Last week, we talked all about this group of five that's going to form. It's the Visionaries plus Rabina and Tucker. Obviously, Quinn would be there, talking about it's an inevitability that this group's going to form. So whatever we talk about today probably won't happen either, but but I'm optimistic.
Instead, the collective has become the biggest and strongest
And we
alliance.
were clowning Joseph. What an idiot. Try to will the collective into existence.
There's
Uh, you know,
always one, and everyone always clowns the one, but it kind of works. It just kind of works.
well, in a house of passive players, if you're the one active person, you've got a lot of power.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's Joseph's spot right now.
Exactly. So, of course, we pull up the graphic here. Cedric is the HOH. He nominated Angela, Kenny, and Tucker. Tucker then won the veto, came up with a plan to not use the veto on himself and instead use it on Angela. He was told not to by Cedric, but according to him, he was not told not to. And so he went ahead and used the veto on Angela. Quinn did not go up as per Tucker's plan. Instead, MJ went on the block, who then used her power. Now America will be nominating the third nominee, and that vote will, I imagine, open up tonight after the episode. And in the meantime, Quinn's power has been exposed. Tucker has declared war on Cedric, and there's still some back and forth between who should leave between Tucker and Kenny. And if Kenny is going to leave, what do they do with Tucker? Do they align with him? Do they work with him? If Quinn does end up on the block via America, do we vote him out? How do we deal with his power and the fact that he lied to us and that he has a million final twos that were exposed? So many questions and not a lot of answers yet, but that is how we set up the day here today.
As a Quinn fan, it's a very terrifying set of live feeds to watch because every conversation that T-Core has, that Kimo has, even that like Cam has, you're like, if he loses one more vote, it could very well be over. And he hasn't seemingly lost them yet, but he's definitely not securing the votes. But he's not even on the block yet. It's a very terrifying experience for the Quinians out there. And I assume it's going to stay that way up until the eviction is over.
Mm. Well, we started the day with one of those bad scenarios for the Quinians, I suppose, which is that Leah is still just like pissed at Quinn. She has gone from a Quinian herself to he gives me the ick. I hate him. Get him away from me. I would love to vote him out. And she is spreading to everyone that she can that Quinn made a final two with her, that he's a manipulator, and that he should go.
Yeah, I have two minds of this. If Leah feels uncomfortable by anything that Quinn's doing, that is well within her rights to talk about. On the other hand, Leah does do this pretty often where she has people who want to work with her and she makes it her mission to trash them around the entire house. First, it was Quinn, which made some sort of sense. Quinn has a lot of deals going on. Then it was Cam. Okay, well, Cam has a crush on her. She doesn't like him. Okay. Then it's MJ. And now I'm starting to think like Leah has this talent for picking the exact wrong people to trash throughout the house. And it's destroying her game, but she doesn't seem to know that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Quinn has not yet found out how anti him she is. But given that he is a likely candidate for HOH next week, assuming he doesn't leave, I have to imagine that there's a bus coming for Leah that somebody might be driving. Um, she does talk to Tucker about Quinn. She also talks to Rubina about Quinn. Um, Rubina, who was one of the people that had initially been kind of like, "Ugh," about Quinn and lying about his power. She had recently made a final two with Quinn. It was barely a real final two, though. It was like literally in passing, like, "Hey, final two, yeah, okay." Um, and more than that, it was the idea that he is like in the bedroom with the women, that he chose that bedroom, and she feels like he was like trying to spy on them as part of his game. And so they talked, and things were seemingly going decently well. But now, after hearing what Leah has to say, she's kind of like back on board the anti Quinn train as well, which is definitely not a good thing for Quinn if he does end up on the block.
Now we were doing the math of this of like, okay, well, Quinn still would have all these votes. I counted Rabina and Leah as Quinn votes. Now they're not. So this theoretical like 8-3 vote is now like 6-5, and it's one away, so it's not good.
Yeah. So Rubina does talk to T-Core about this. T-Core is also still a little skeptical of Quinn. She's not too concerned about the power, but all of this talk of his various final twos does have her concerned. And Rubina is trying to press on that and encourage T-Core to work with Tucker. That hey, we should align with Tucker. I think that there's like a group of us that we can pull together that includes Tucker. It's essentially what the Visionary Alliance would have been had they actually done anything and not been ratted out by Joseph, Tucker, and a million other people. But subtract Quinn from it, basically. Let's get Tucker, you, me, Kimo, and maybe a couple other people. We'll maybe think about starting to solidify something along those lines.
It's aggravating because it shows how much like game ability Tucker has because everyone wants to work with him. Like he has an army behind him. He's did great job with Kimo, which we'll talk about later. T Core is a little bit more hesitant. I think T Core is a person who likes a calmer energy, a calmer house, and Tucker is the exact opposite of that. I know she said Tucker was like intimidating, was kind of one of his plans, which seems accurate from what I've seen. I don't see this group forming. The main point I realized from this conversation is why is Rabina dying on this hill right now? It doesn't make that much sense to me. Obviously, having a big physical guy as a close ally is a huge asset, but I really don't like the direction her game is heading. Like, she felt personally slighted by Quinn hiding this power and was like making Quinn apologize to her. I'm not the biggest fan, but there is seemingly enough people on her side where it's not like she's in this tiny minority.
Yeah, it can be a lot to ask of players sometimes because, like, I don't think that Rubina should just turn her back on Tucker and just be like, yeah, screw Tucker, he should leave. Because Tucker is definitely an asset to her game, not in the sense that he's helping her socially, but in the sense that him being there is a huge boon for her strategically. And he really only benefits people like Rubina. I do think that he would be an anchor to Kimo and T-Core. Um, Granted, they need something, but like I don't think Tucker is the something because I think Tucker could turn on literally anybody, even Rubina, but like hopefully not Rubina. Rubina's maybe the one person that it might not happen to. But like ideally, I think for Rubina, she's able to distance herself socially from Tucker, and not be so active in trying to pull groups in with him. There's a little bit of a thing later that actually I think would be beneficial to her if there was an alliance with Tucker that formed without her. I think that's perfect for Rubina because it helps keep Tucker safe and she has nothing to do with it. That's exactly where I think she wants to be. Weirdly, but I think that's kind of a hard ask sometimes because it's like the reason she's good with Tucker is because she gets along really well with him, and it's hard to like your personal sort of agenda and desires conflicting with what you should be doing strategically is sometimes hard to manage. And so I do think that she's pushing a little hard here, but at the same time, it's like it might just not be in the cards to try to pull off something a little more polar opposite juxtaposition-y kind of deal.
Again, like I think there's two paths for Rabina. It's back Tucker. Tucker has a good chance of staying either by the vote against Kenny, definitely, even against Quinn, he has a shot, or just the AI arena, and all of a sudden she's got this little group together that's good.
Exactly.
And now that the collective form is back, she needs that group.
Yeah.
The other hand is Tucker gets voted out, Rabina gets to move on. That association is just going to be gone. So like she's fine. I just don't like I feel like I've seen a lack of flexibility that just feels like a bad omen. Maybe I'm overreacting.
I mean, honestly, the bigger thing for me is it's just this amount of like, well, maybe we'll do this thing. Let's keep talking about it. Like that's what burned you last time, and they're still doing this. They're gonna talk about being in an alliance until day 50 when they get evicted. It's just like it's ridiculous. Speaking of, there is more talk about Tucker maybe forming an alliance with people like MJ, Brooklyn, Chelsea, Cam, Rubina. He's talking about these people that he still thinks he has a good relationship with, that he can potentially work with. And like, I'm losing my mind because this season, like, okay, Big Brother 3, we introduce the first successful secret alliance. It changes the game forever. When alliances are secret, you can't do anything about them because you don't know that they exist. It's a fundamental part of Big Brother strategy. This season, nothing is secret, but they're still not doing anything about anything. It's ridiculous. Tucker knows about the collective. He knows that many of the people he is talking about pulling into alliance are in the collective that Joseph told him about. And he's still like, yeah, let's pull in Chelsea. Let's pull in Cam. Let's pull in Brooklyn. Like, what do you mean? How do you see this working? I don't understand.
But the problem is, Taran, the collective's 8 people. Like, what group can you form outside of it? You're like, okay, I'm going to pull in Kenny. I'm going to pull in Angela.
When you're calling a house meeting and you're saying Quinn has a power, you also say, and he's also in an 8-person alliance called the Collective that has a bunch of people in it. Everyone outside of it should probably band together a little bit. Use me.
You're fighting the most losing battle of all time trying to give Tucker strategic advice. This is not going to happen. But you out the collective, and then Joseph's pissed at you, and you're going to lose like any potential vote with. Maybe you still get.
He's already lost
T-Core and
Kimo.
The
collective is already on that side.
I mean, you're convincing me. I just a different player maybe.
Yeah. It's just it just feels like it's wild to me when it feels like this happens so often that it's like there's this piece of information that's out there, and it's like the players forgot about it. It's like they're Danny just forgetting about the Iron Fleet. Like it's just like, how is this possible that like Tucker has just forgotten about the collective in the same way that T-Core and Kimo seem to consistently just forget about the Pentagon, which we'll talk about later tonight. It's wild. Anyway, for the exact reasons I'm laying out, which is that they're including people like Chelsea in this group. And I don't blame MJ nearly as much for this because Chelsea has done a very good job of pulling in MJ and marinating her. Tucker should know better though. But MJ talks to Chelsea about this potential new alliance. And she's like, I actually kind of like this idea. Me, you, Brooklyn, maybe Cam. Like, there's some things we can do here. Rubina, though, I don't think so. Also, let's not include Leah.
This MJ Leah saga is infuriating. Both of them were like locked in a duo. Everyone perceived them that way, and it feels like overnight they hate each other. And I can't understand why.
Who knows? They've honestly been hot and cold from day one. From night one of the feeds, MJ was like, I know Leah ratted me out to Angela.
Yes.
So I think there's always been a little bit of something going on there. But so MJ's like, let's cut Rubina. Let's not include Leah. Let's just make a good core of me, you, Brooklyn, Cam, Tucker. Like that's a pretty good squad right there. And Chelsea's just like, why do people keep inviting me to these things? This is so stupid of them.
Wait, here's the thing about MJ. I'm really low on MJ's game in general. I feel like she had 4 weeks of safety that she's shortened to 3 weeks. She hasn't made any lasting bonds outside of maybe Chelsea, but Chelsea doesn't care about her. She lost. There's a lot of bad, but she's trying really hard. Like she's actively trying to put groups together and better her position, and I do
Mhm.
appreciate that. I do think she'll be on the block next week. I do think she's very subject to the wrong AI arena outcome, the wrong veto outcome, and she can go home. But this group just makes like no sense. I think what happens with all these people outside of the Pentagon, outside of the three C's, the collective, they just don't see the bonds existing as they are. They all see like Chelsea and Cam together, but they're kind of forgetting about the Cedric piece. They think none of them are strategizing with Quinn. It's just they got this like massive. Maybe it's just the perspective of a former player. It's so hard to play without information,
Yep.
and once you have that information, it's so easy. And
It
Mackenzie has
should
been in the
be
dark.
Tucker.
Like, stop bringing up Tucker. Okay, he is not. He's the exception that does
Kimo
not
and
prove the rule.
T-Core.
Okay, well, maybe you got me there, but again, like I don't blame MJ as much because she's been in the dark since
Yes.
day one. But I like the fight.
I honestly, I almost feel like, and maybe I'm being too generous here, but I feel like if MJ had the information that Tucker, Joseph, T-Core, Kimo, all of them had, I think she'd be a lot more effective. I think that she would know what to do. But she doesn't have that.
More effective, sure, but she almost didn't use the power on herself, Taran.
Yeah. No.
There's not like I think here's the thing. When you're in a bad position, I have less expectations. So I'm almost hoping Mackenzie stays in a bad position because I'm going to be a lot less harsh on my criticism. Whereas Chemo and T-Core, like, y'all, come on.
Yeah. All right. So, Chelsea talks to T-Core. She's like, "Hey, so they're trying to make this alliance, and you know, like there's stuff going on. Might as well say yes to it, right? Like T-Core, maybe you could get involved. Like, we just say yeah. We just want to stay on Tucker's good side. We might as well say yes. It can be maybe like the two of us with Brooklyn, Tucker, and Cam. We don't have to actually include MJ. They want to like again be good with Tucker. That's really the main purpose here. But they also don't want Tucker to stick around forever. But like you have to understand, there is a perspective in the house that Tucker is unevictable. Because he crushed the AI arena last week. He won the veto competition this week. And even though he didn't use the veto on himself, they're all pretty much just assuming he's going to crush the AI arena competition this week. And so they're just kind of like, well, we might as well be in good with him because we're not going to be able to evict him because we do still want to evict Kenny first because we want to get that guy out of here. So we might as well be good with him, but we do still want to protect Cedric. Like Cedric, he really stood up for us. He really was loyal. We don't want Cedric to be a casualty of Tucker. But we do want to. I mean, we want to be good with Tucker.
Yeah, it's why I'm extremely high on Cedric's game, honestly. Like, he was put in a horribly difficult position this week where he had to pick one of two options because Tucker made it like, if you don't pick my side, you are the enemy. But everyone who he did side with is like fully backing him. And I don't see any danger of him. If he touches the block, I think he's fine. First of all, he has the veto and the arena, but I think he stays against almost anybody. If he's up against Brooklyn or Chelsea, maybe, but I don't see that happening. So I'm very high on Cedric. And what people's like fear about Tucker, they're not wrong. And it's like a danger that when we talk about inequitable comps, I think people often like simplify it to, oh, they can just win their way to the end. That's not the problem with those comps.
Yeah.
The problem is those people have like an indiscriminate or like a disproportionate like power in the game that everyone else has to deal with. You have to put way more attention into Jag than you do Felicia. You need to worry more about Tucker than T-Core, even though T-Core is a far superior player than Tucker. And I think Tucker's reached that point already through 2 competitions because these last few have not been the most equitable. Where Tucker's already become like, he has a much higher margin of error than everybody else because you've got to be good with Tucker in the way you don't have to be good with everyone else on the cast.
100%. And like you see that in a smaller dose with what happened with Quinn this week. Because Quinn had the power of being HOH next week, Cedric had to deal with Quinn in a way that he wouldn't have otherwise. If Quinn doesn't have that power, there's a good chance he's up on the block. And now, to be fair to Quinn, if he doesn't have the power, he's also probably not in trouble to go up on the block. So I'm not gonna like be like, oh, he was saved by a twist, because he was also in trouble by a twist. But what I will say is that that power is what prevented Cedric from making that move for the most part, because he knew that Quinn was coming into power soon. Somebody like, let's say, Tucker, or let's say Jag, who you can pretty much just assume is going to win at least one competition per week on average, and has a very high chance of winning multiple HOHs. That's like you're dealing with a Quinn with that power every single week for the rest of the game. So that amount of like leeway that Cedric had to give Quinn is happening constantly with players like Tucker, like Jag, like Jackson, like Cody. Like you have to just be so overly concerned about them. They have so much power. It is like they have a twist that gives them a flip a coin, you win a competition power, like every single competition.
Yeah. Well, Jag, Jackson, and Cody did not have the AI arena, so that's like a whole nother point
Exactly,
that
it makes
Tucker
it even
has,
worse.
and that's a 1 in 3 chance, and you're probably competing against like Angela. So like that's another element of it. I think Tucker might also have this like aura at this point where he volunteers for the block, wins the veto, doesn't use it on himself. If he wins the AI arena, he might become like a messiah in the house. Like he really is just like this enigma. Like, what do
I can
you
see it.
do with this guy? But here's the thing: he's impossible to get out of the house. But they've got 2 shots, 2 clean shots. He's on the block now. He could lose the AI arena. They vote him out. Next week, Quinn's HOH. So, like, if you're gonna do it, now is the time. If he makes it to week, I guess it would be what, week 5? Then you might have to start like raising the stock watch score solely for the winning out factor.
Yeah. Well, Tikor lets Rubina know about this whole pitched alliance from MJ, that MJ wants this Tucker alliance thing, but she wants to cut Rubina out of it. And Rubina's like, excuse me? That is my showmans that you're talking about. She's like, well, I hope that Tucker tells me about that. Like, it would really suck if he did not tell me that this is the play. But she doesn't want to like go and ask him about it necessarily. She wants to see if he'll come to her about it. And quite frankly, I don't think he even knows about that part of it yet. So that's going to be a bit of an issue. But really, this is like this whole saga in the beginning of the day where like this alliance kind of like comes into fruition, gets shifted around, gets exposed, then gets more exposed, then gets like, then people are mad about it, and then basically the entire house knows, like by like midday.
I think the bad apple, and there's a couple of bad apples. Chelsea's a bad apple too. It's Tucker. Like, stop including Tucker in your alliance. Like, stop. It's so over at
Well, he
this
was the whole
point.
point.
Yeah, to make Tucker feel comfortable. I think everyone should feel comfortable about Tucker except for Cedric, Quinn, and some third person. You know what I mean? Like, we know where he's headed right now, but we also don't because it's Tucker. He might change his mind and put up Kimo, Leah, and Rabina for all we know. So I guess that's
Honestly,
the insecurity.
it feels safer to just like be ignored by Tucker. Like the
Mm.
closer you are with him, the more danger he's almost like he's got a little bit of spicy V in him, I think. Where it's like it's safer to just be like away from his awareness entirely. Like for instance, Kimo.
The move might be to just have a crush on Tucker. It feels like that's the only
Well,
way to
that
be
didn't work for
like,
Leah though.
okay, a 66%, 100% of the time, 2/3 of the time, you're safe from Tucker.
So speaking of Kimo, I just want to set the stage a little bit here. Kimo and Tucker have probably talked like 3 times in the last 2 weeks. And one of those times was Kimo telling Tucker about Quinn's power. So I want you to keep that in mind in preparation for this conversation where Kimo, he's having a bit of a rough day. Having a bit of a rough day. he's gonna ask. He's in the back bedroom. He's gonna ask Tucker like, "Hey, do you trust me?" And Tucker's like, "Yeah, of course." I was like, I know we don't. Well, regardless of how much we talk, I super with you.
Mm.
And he gets up and he gives Kimo a big hug. And he keeps giving him a hug. And the camera goes tight in on Kimo's face. And he's like, and then tears start falling from Kimo's eyes. And the hug keeps going. And the hug keeps going. And then, Cam walks in. Hi, Cam. And the hug keeps going. And Cam doesn't leave. Hug keeps going. Tears rolling down Kimo's face. Cam's like, yeah, I'm cool to be in here. He walks over, and I'm like, okay, he's just grabbing something. He's just grabbing something. He's going to leave. Hug keeps going. No, he's not just grabbing something. He leans back against the dressers in front of the bed where they're hugging, and he's like, what's up, guys? And they're still in the middle of their dramatic hug. It keeps going. And it's like, oh man, awkward. No, this isn't awkward.
Terry, you don't see through this? Clearly, Tucker was called into the DR, was chosen as America's player. He has to have a 10-second plus hug with
Right?
Kimo. Here's my theory about Tucker. I think Tucker, without the ability to speak, is a top 5 player of all time. If he just goes in there, gives hugs, looks the way he does, and wins competitions, he's an unstoppable force.
Fair.
But
yeah,
maybe one day.
Well, he does speak at the end of the hug. He says, you know, we're gonna hang out West Hollywood. We're gonna tear it up metaphorically and physically.
I've been the bully. I've been bullied.
Kimo's like, oh, whoa.
Yeah, I don't think Kimo tears it up very often.
And I think, listen, I told you, they've talked like 3 times in 2 weeks. That one time, it's going to last a few more weeks. That's all he needed.
It was like 8 words exchanged in this conversation, and then Quinty, Core, and Kimo have like hundreds later in the day. Those 8 words might have been more effective.
Easily.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of, Quinn does have a bit of a camera talk. He's got some plans. He says he wants to make a final 2 with Brooklyn. Which on one hand is at this point a good idea. On the other hand, he has just been exposed for having multiple final 2s, so maybe not the best timing. He sees that Rubina is still mad at him now, so he's very concerned about that. He realizes it was probably a bad move to not tell people about power once it was pretty clear that it was probably going to get out. And he also was like, I haven't really checked in with Tikor and Kimo. I should probably do that. To which I was like, yeah, you probably should.
And I think it's like a little bit difficult to judge Quinn too hard on like that point specifically. Like you got to check in with your allies. That's important. I feel like us outside are more confident he's going to be on the block than he is, obviously. Like, I think he's aware of the possibility that he could be nominated, but he doesn't see the reaction, the edited show, any of that. I would say to future house guys, when it comes to cam talks, they're awesome. Just hope you're right, because when you're not right in the cam talks, it's kind of brutal to listen to. Like, he has this master plan. He's like, I'm going to test Leah. I'm going to tell her, is Mackenzie targeting me? And based on that, the whole game will shift. I'm like, I don't like it doesn't, I don't think this matters, Quinn. Like, it's good that you're targeting Leah potentially. But this whole cam talk, like, I appreciate players who are able to acknowledge their own flaws. And I think he is right when part of his complaint is like, I couldn't have counted on a Tucker being in the house, which is true. With all Quinn's mistakes, the circumstances of this week are ridiculous for him to be in the position that he's in. But he's like self-aware to a certain extent. I think he's aware of the problems with his game, but he's very optimistic, which I think is a better thing than being down in the dumps.
Yeah, the secret of cam talks that we don't like to talk about is that like 90% of the time it makes you look like an idiot. But we love them. Don't not do them. Do them all the time, please.
Mhm.
Uh,
Exactly.
so Quinn does check in with Tikor and Kimo. He says he does think he might be on the block. And that's obviously a little concerning. They let him know about MJ's new alliance thing. And they talk a little more. It's kind of an awkward conversation. Kimo's vibe is off. Tikor's barely talking. And they're just kind of like talking through what Tikor and Kimo want to do in this conversation is like ask Quinn about his final twos and be like, are you what's going on with that? Are you actually still good? And neither of them are really like big confrontation people, so they don't. Instead, Quinn does a lot of the talking, and in doing so, he accidentally name drops the Pentagon. And she was like, "Oh, I thought it was the Andersons." He's, "No, that's a different one. It's the Pentagon is the one in the collective." But also, you didn't hear that. Please forget what the name I just said.
It's so annoying. Right? Okay, if you accidentally leak the alliance, go all in. Say, yeah,
Right?
the Pentagon includes these 5 people. I want to tell you guys because of this. He goes, oh shoot, the Pentagon's gonna be so mad at me. It's like, Quinn, no, like they don't want you to be loyal to the Pentagon.
Yeah.
This conversation was brutal. So there's a couple of weird dynamics at play. Tikor and Kimo are kind of beefing a little bit. Like they're getting back together, it seems. I'm not worried long term for them, but there's like that odd element. I think both of them need to just get over it because Kimo was a bad ally to Tikor. Tikor still needs Kimo. Like
Yeah.
y'all have to fix that. And then with Quinn, I really think at this point in the game, Quinn is most loyal to them.
Yeah.
But he can't communicate it without them thinking he's lying to them because he has all these connections and they won't clarify with him.
Mhm.
Like, this is the problem with these two players, Kimo and Tikor. Neither of them are active enough. I thought Tikor was getting there, but this week she's kind of just like pumped the brakes entirely. Maybe it's because of a Cedric HOH, but that doesn't seem like the worst thing for her. Maybe it's just because Tucker has done what Tucker's done. I have went from last podcast we talked about it's a matter of time until this group forms. This group won't form. I am confident. Now they're on the fringes of the collective, and hopefully they get kind of dragged far enough to the point where they can win an HOH and make a move.
It seems like Tikor consistently knows what she should be doing and talks about it to Kimo and the cameras, but then never actually does it. Is my biggest problem. Well, no, I wouldn't say never, but like consistently is like not doing.
Yeah, it reminds me of Mimi a bit. I think the benefit I give T-Core versus Mimi is Cerie's not running the power structures. Like T-Core actually does have the ability to like I think she's one of the stronger players in the house. So when she decides to make a move and get more active, I think she stands a fighting chance. There's not like this massive uphill battle she has to do. Um, it's just weird. Like it felt like she was going last week, and this week she stopped. And my thought was kind of, well, okay, everyone's being chaotic this week. T-Core is just maintaining her position. I don't think she's improving her game, but everyone else around her is destroying their games. So
Mm.
maybe it's okay. But what concerns me is like that conversation with Rabina was a lot less awkward than her conversation with Kimo. And it's
Yep.
like that's a direction she could head. I think she should be playing the middle. Uh, she's got to fix it with Kimo. It's very frustrating to me.
Yeah, she does talk to Kimo after this conversation with Quinn. They both agree, like, oh, we just need to be more direct with Quinn and ask him about those final twos. And like, yeah, they should because Quinn is still a major asset for them. They shouldn't trust Quinn, but they should be using Quinn to the fullest potential because right now they're letting the Pentagon and the collective use Quinn when they should be using Quinn. They should be talking to Quinn about his power and what he should do with it and how it can benefit them. Because I think he would listen to them more than he would listen to the collective or listen to the Pentagon. Um, and he kind of needs to know that these final twos have been leaking. And you telling him, confronting him about it would help him find out that these final twos are leaking. And that I think only benefits you at this moment.
He would deny them. Like we've seen this before. Like he is so lucky Tucker outed the power in that ceremony because he'd be denying it to this day
You would.
if it didn't. So like Unless Kimo has like real dirt on him, like, hey, you have a final two with Cedric, quality control, right? Like, then you might get Quinn to be like, oh yeah, that thing. I'm almost happy for Quinn that they didn't confront him because I think he probably would have denied it for a while
Oh,
and then
what a
eventually
disaster that
admitted
would
it.
be.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh, they do think that he's still workable. They do need to talk to him about those final twos. And it is just concerning that he's very clearly trying to set himself up in the game. He's just he's just too obvious. Like he's such an interesting player because he's got such a great social game. Like people love Quinn, but his strategy, while like the basics are there, it's just so misguided in terms of like how he I guess okay. I think his strategy is pretty decent. His social game is really good, but he is terrible at combining the two. Um, because the second he starts talking strategy with people, he's leaking the wrong information to the wrong people and the right information to the wrong people and the wrong information to the right people. And he's just so all over the place. And so he has this conversation with Tikor and Kimo, and he's like, "Yeah, so we can probably pull in Brooklyn and Joseph because I'm close with them, and then we can work with them, and then we can probably drag Leah to jury and work with the collective, and it's just like Tikor's like, I can see right through this. Like, you are setting yourself up in this group. You have the Pentagon, you have the collective. You're trying to pull Leah because you don't realize yet that she hates you. You're just trying to set yourself up. And I'm not just gonna listen to you blindly and follow your lead on this. I'm gonna want to set myself up. Now, she says this. Will she actually do those things? I hope so, but I'm not seeing the evidence for it yet. But like she's still seeing right through it. And she's frustrated with that. Luckily for him, she's even more frustrated with Tucker and the way that he operates. She does not like that he uses intimidation to form alliances and try to work with people. And she's very, very pro Cedric over Tucker. So it's not like she's really seriously considering choosing Tucker over Quinn at this point, but she's still very skeptical of Quinn.
It's really concerning for Quinn. Once you get that stink on you that you're the rat strategist, it's
Mhm.
almost impossible to get off of you. I think Dan was one of the only people who's able to do it, and I don't know if Quinn has Dan upside just yet. And like it gets to a point where you start telling the truth and people assume it's a lie. He
Yeah.
does want to work with Kimo and T-Core, and they don't believe him. I think Joseph and Quinn have almost switched places in that. People are still suspicious of Joseph, but I think they view him as a lot more harmless than Quinn. It,
Yeah.
it gets to a point with Quinn where it's like, you have too many enemies. I found myself in this position. You got to get rid of Matt, Jag, Blue, Cameron, and Felicia. You only have one HOH.
Yep.
Quinn is going to have an HOH. He's going to get one of Tucker, Kenny, Angela, MJ, Lee. He's going to get one person out, and then there's going to be four left, and someone's going to win HOH and target him.
Hmm.
Too many enemies, and at this point, I think his best asset in the game, and this is very sad, is Joseph. What does
Yeah.
that do? It's like,
Yeah.
congratulations. I think they actually do connect pretty well, but Joseph all of a sudden finds himself kind of in like, I don't know. People are a little too high on Joseph too. He has like no personal connections in the house, but
Yeah. I mean, I think like Joseph has been on the rise, but that's because he was pretty low before. He's
yeah.
certainly not like in the mix of things quite yet. So I'll stay skeptical for now, but um, Tikor does talk to Cedric. She has a very good conversation with him. She asks him who he thinks he can trust. He does mention that he does think he can still trust Quinn for now, because of what happened, but he is still a little iffy. And he wishes he talked more game with Kimo because he basically never talks to Kimo because Kimo doesn't talk to anybody. But he says he trusts Kimo, but he wishes he talked more game with him, which is his way of saying he doesn't really trust Kimo. And then she mentions Quinn in the final twos, but that even if he did do all of this stuff at this point, because he was exposed, he has no choice but to work with the collective now. So for that reason, they can probably still trust him for now.
Quinn, for these or Quinn, Terry, for these people in the Pentagon, do you think they trust Quinn as much as they're saying, or do you think this is he's the next HOH? I'm never gonna badmouth him.
I think Chelsea and Brooklyn trust him still. Chelsea because, I don't think she ever was like Chelsea was, I think, in Chelsea's mind, it's her, Cedric, and Brooklyn, and then Quinn and Cam were always on the outs, and she's more concerned about Cam than Quinn, and I don't think any of that changed for her. For Brooklyn, I think that she feels like it's her, Chelsea, and Quinn. And even though they don't talk a ton together, she does see him in like a similar position. She's also a fan of the game, and is like very unconcerned about Quinn playing the game. She knows she's playing the game too. And I think that she fully doesn't care about any of it and would be perfectly happy to accept a final two with him if and when he proposes one. So I don't think they have lost trust. I do think that Cedric is exactly where he said. I think he's being completely genuine with T-Core. I think that he does trust Quinn right now because he just did this thing for him. It's that like Ben Franklin thing of like when you do somebody a favor, you end up liking them more, even though you're the one that did them a favor. But he is, I think, going to still be a little skeptical moving forward. And then Cam is kind of Cam. I think he's still kind of out on Quinn in general. I don't think that he's super fond of Quinn at the moment, but he's not gonna like rock the boat or anything.
Sure. I mean, just to put a button on the T core of it all, the more we talk about it, the more I feel good about T core's position because she's outside the Pentagon, which is bad. I think three members of the Pentagon would like her to go to like the four with her. You know what I mean? Like, I think she has such a good relationship with Cedric, and her and Chelsea are super tight. They're not going to prioritize Quinn. Cedric and Cam's a little bit, maybe more complicated, but I don't think Cedric and Brooklyn are as tight. So, like, I think she's in the Pentagon without being in the Pentagon. She's not in the same position as Joseph and Kimo.
I do agree. I think she's fine for now. I think that's we gave her a 6, I think, in the stock watch last night. Um, because her position is fine. But she does talk to the cameras later, and basically, like, the feeling for me is that, like, she's fine for now, and that's almost more concerning to me because I need her to feel like she needs to, like, have some fire under her because I don't want her to just coast on fine because I don't think that's gonna work for her long term. Um, it could, but, like, what I really like okay, if I felt like T-Core was willing to ride this for now and then, like, make a move with the information she has, out the Pentagon, out Quinn more, like, whatever, at the right time and make that power play, I'd be like, "Okay, she's in an okay position here. She's got the tools that she needs to push herself forward when she has the opportunity to." But I'm not sure I see T-Core being that aggressive in the game. And so if she's not going to be that aggressive, I need her to start from a higher vantage point so that the coasting lasts longer, if that makes sense.
I think it's so important that she keeps Quinn around for that
For now,
reason
yeah.
of like, and honestly, like, a lot of her problems with Quinn don't make sense to me. Like, she's concerned about him building a resume and as a jury threat, and it's like, T-Core, one step at a time. We're at the final 14. I know I was talking about the final 5 at this point, but, like, I think T-Core, if she's not going to be the active player to take a shot herself, she needs someone who will, and this cast does not have many of them. Quinn, Joseph, Tucker,
Yeah.
maybe MJ, maybe
Um,
Chelsea. It's like there's not many of them.
Completely. And I think that Quinn is the perfect person for her to ride forward in the game. Like Tucker is too much of a wild card. Quinn is a very self-interested player who's going to be very active, who's going to be making moves, who's going to be feeding her information while being a big threat and a big target for people. And he's also going to continue to screw up. Like Quinn is not just going to take control of this game and ride it to the end. He's also not going to comp out. Like, I do feel like that's a good play for her. But she has to be willing to sort of like see that path. So we'll see. She does say to the camera she wants a woman to win the season
Or Kimo.
or Kimo.
Yeah, which, you know what? Good on Kimo.
So that was pretty much the day, really. Really not as much fallout from the Tucker stuff as we may have thought. So far, at least, I think that there's a lot of like wait and see, especially with this America nomination. So for me, it's wait and see what the edit is tonight. There was a sneak peek that showed Kimo leaking the Quinn information, and like it's really like I could see a world, and this has been talked about now, where Kimo is the villain of the episode. All it would take is a couple of diary rooms of Kimo being like, "I have a crush on Tucker. I gave him this information," and then like him maybe crying about it in the diary room, like, "Oh, I screwed up. Like I screwed Quinn over." Or like, like there's just so many different ways you can villainize anyone and get a casual audience to want to like punish them for putting whatever. So it's possible. My guess would still be Quinn, personally. But I really feel like the edit will choose at this point.
Yeah, it's pretty frustrating. I think especially because of like the way this voting works, where it's like Wednesday night episode, the voting ends Thursday. Like it is so top of mind. You don't get a couple days to think about it. Not that casuals, I think, really would. I tweeted about this. People like votes are not rigged. Absolutely not. There's too much money at stake. That cannot happen.
Mhm.
But this is not a vote that like the general public decides. Right? The general public is super malleable to what the edited show is. So like you can look back to several past seasons and look at a lot of different results, and this is just how it works out as long as there's no like pre-existing fame or anything. So I'm they could very easily throw Quinn under the bus. That's the easiest option. I think Chemo's another option. Cam is a dark horse as someone they can kind of throw under the bus here. But everyone's campaigning on Twitter like protect your peace. I don't think it's doing very much.
None of it's gonna matter.
Yeah, someone I was streaming yesterday, Taran, and someone's like, "Well, Cam won the RHAP poll for," and I'm like, I can't express how little that means. Like,
Especially pre-episode.
like this is next to zero. In terms of
Unfortunately,
feedback.
this is not BBOTT, where that was very representative of.
Oh God, take me back.
Yeah.
Look, I think Quinn being up is actually one of the more dramatic options. So that'll be fun based on what he's been talking about. I don't think he'll take it as hard as I maybe previously predicted. But just the fact that this nominee happens Thursday night, like what drama are we to get from it? Like I think if it was Wednesday night, it would be a crazy day if it's Thursday, but that's not the case.
Yeah. There were a couple of other quick things. One is that Quinn has been sleepwalking and sleep talking. In honestly, in my opinion, one of the funniest ways. Because he's like he's sleep talking, being like, "I swear I'm telling the truth. I swear."
I get it. I feel that. What I love about Quinn is he puts a smile on when he's so clearly miserable. Like it's that constant word in your head of I'm so miserable, I want to go home, and this is the best like however many weeks of my life. And you could kind of see it on Quinn's face, like he's laughing it off, but he also cannot sleep. Um, it's odd. The one other thing I want to talk about, Taryn, I don't know if you want to. You want to talk about MJ
Yeah, that was
a
the
little
other
bit?
thing.
Okay, good.
Listen, it was a little weird.
Mhm.
It was a little weird. MJ talked about her brother, and that I'm not gonna cast judgment. We're gonna bring it up because it's a topic of conversation. Worth noting if you're invested in the Matt MJ showmance, maybe
Yeah.
that she said her brother is her soulmate. And that she's like, man, I wish I didn't have to marry somebody else.
She said she had a guy at home. Um, there you go. Here's what I'll say. At least it's not Tucker. At least that's not her crush. Like
But
I'll take it.
there was talk last night about how MJ had a crush on Tucker initially. That's what Tucker says.
No, well now that's been deconfirmed, and that's one silver lining.
Yeah, it was a little weird. So that's pretty much it. Corey, anything else you wanted to bring up?
No, AI Arena keeps stalling out these Tuesdays. Can't wait for it to end.
All right. Well, that is what we have for you. I will, of course, be back tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, to update you on everything that happens today on the Big Brother 26 live feeds. Later tonight, I'll be on Twitch, twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong. I'll be watching the episode live with all of you. And we'll also be live recapping the episode after the fact. Should be quite a dramatic one. So stay tuned for that. And not only a dramatic episode, but also the episode will basically tell us who is the most likely nominee for Thursday. So the edit of the episode, also very important. Of course, tomorrow we'll also have the eviction. We'll find out the nominee, the AI arena, all of that stuff. Tons more to come here with our Big Brother coverage. Check out the slop this week. If you're a patron, if you're not, become one because you want to listen to the. I've heard very good things, Cory, about America's appearance on the slop.
There was a podcast that was perfectly designed for America, and she did not disappoint.
So check that out. We did the roundtable last night. The getaway finale dropped today. I have coverage for that. And should be speaking soon to the final 3 contestants on that show. So tune in for that. Check out the Tastemakers. Check out our House of the Dragon coverage. And Cory, what do you got going on?
I stream a lot, every day, every other day. Twitch.tv/Cory Wurtenberger. Almost always Big Brother stuff. Patreon.com/AmeriCory. America and I have our podcast. A lot of things. We're currently deciding for me to rewatch one of BB Can 5, 10, or Big Brother 7 for America. Her first time watching these seasons.
Ooh.
So all winners there. So get on there and vote. But yeah, that's it.
All right. Well, that's what we have for you. Thank you all so much for joining us here today. And I will see all of you next time.